Match found.
No.
Move or get zapped.
Hello.
Hi.
Go for Sage. That would be nice.
Together, friends, we can do anything. We can save the world.
I'm out of here.
Here. Greetings.
Go, go, go! Gotta go!
Next. Enemy spotted B.
Go, go, go! Last player standing. Spike
Watch out.
down B. One enemy remaining.
I'm out of here.
Thirty seconds left.
Sorry.
Alright, homies, chill. We'll go again. Damn, you love being here. Like, way too much.
Okay, okay, okay.
Gotta go.
Time's up.
Gotta go. Reloading.
What?
See ya. Show me a target. Busy up, Mosh. There's my buddy. Go.
30 seconds left.
Dizzy's up. Someone's there.
One enemy remaining.
Good, cuate.
Last
You
one.
did good.
Last player standing.
Daytime. Nice. Nice one. GG.
Now we're talking. Don't jinx it though. Appreciate it.
Go, go, go! Go, go, go!
Hold our ground.
Gotta go! I'm out of here. Take this!
Enemy spotted B.
Spike down B. Last player standing.
Dizzy's up top. Dizzy has target. Alley-oop. Run, little man. Back to me.
Thirty seconds left. One
She's
enemy
ready.
remaining. Spike down B. Ten seconds left.
Yeah.
Daytime.
Clutch.
GG.
Your first mistake was assuming I couldn't. A huevo. Nice.
Goodness, Gecko! What was that? I'm out of here. Gotta go. Go, go, go!
是时候进入状态了。
Watch out! Barrier here.
My ultimate is ready.
Watch them run. Shadows traveling.
I'm out of here.
Sit down. Reloading.
For you. Go, go, go!
Spike down A. One enemy remaining. Thirty seconds left.
Here.
My burden never ends.
go, go! Gotta go!
West, keep your guard up. Right there.
Take this!
Reloading. Enemy A.
Oh,
You had your fun. My turn.
You will not kill my allies! Enemy removed.
Man, they stopped her.
Spike planted. Last player standing.
just safe.
My double thinks she can take me? Bad call. Go, go, go!
I need a gun. Thank you.
I'm out of here.
Thank you.
Right there. Enemy A.
I'm out of here.
No distraction.
Gotta go. Go, go, go. Watch
One
out.
enemy remaining.
I'm out of here.
Spike down A.
Spike spotted.
Gotta go.
Don't worry. I got the strangler.
Go, go, go.
I will take back what is mine.
GG guys.
Gotta go. I'm out of here.
Come on, little homies. Let's get it. My ultimate is ready.
Enemy spotted B.
Go, go, go.
Removed.
Take this for you. This way.
Spike down B.
Gotta go.
Someone's there.
Gotta go.
Enemy spotted B. Reloading.
Hi. I'm pissed. I'm out of here.
One enemy remaining. Thirty seconds left.
I'm out of here. Go, go, go.
Nice,
That's right.
guys.
You tell him.
Gotta go.
Huevo, nice. This is light work. We're chilling.
Gotta go. go, go! Go, go, go!
Reloading.
I'm out of here!
Multiple enemies. Focusing.
Watch them run.
I'm out of here!
Satisfied.
Your duty is not over!
Thank you, Sage. Thrash is ready.
Go, go, go!
Who else?
Watch out!
Spike planted.
I'm out of here! Gotta go! Go, go, go!
Enemy spotted A.
Alice! I'm out of here!
Last player standing. Team Ace.
Remember, bullets hurt. Gotta go! Anyone need anything?
I need this. Thank you.
I'll show them. Lintik kayo.
We're still warming up.
Taken out.
Enemy spotted A.
Gotta go!
Enemy spotted A.
Somebody's
Go,
there.
go, go! I'm out of here.
Spike down A.
Spike is A.
I know exactly where you are.
One enemy remaining. Spike down
Take this.
A.
Ow.
Like I was.
Go, go, go! I'm out of
Sorry.
here.
Inside joke.
I'm out of here.
Maybe I should play Chamber or I become Chamber instead of Neon. What do you think, guys?
Ah, break's over.
Enemy spotted here.
Go, go, go!
Multiple enemies B. Sage is down. My ult is ready. No distraction.
Go, go, go! Here we go! Shock it!
Up and away. Spikes B.
Almost out.
One enemy
Bye-bye.
remaining.
Reloading.
must fall, then fall near me. I'm out of here. Gotta go.
Spike down A.
Right there.
I'm out of here. Go, go, go.
Enemy A. Dizzy's up.
Dizzy has targets.
Gotta go.
Spike down A.
Enemy A.
One enemy remaining.
Wingman's down.
Nice, well played, guys.
A huevo.
Nice.
Last round before the switch.
We cannot keep our goods after this. Spend all.
He's losing his brain.
Gotta go. Go, go, go. There.
Oh,
Spike down B.
he got me this one.
Headshot.
Watch them run.
Right there.
Spike planted. One enemy remaining.
Blinding.
Thank you.
No.
Somebody's there.
You had your fun. My turn.
Reloading.
Not this time.
Switching sides.
Let them try to get through me.
Okay, I will need first line.
I'm out of here. Gotta go.
Okay. He's he's insulting his teammates.
Rush him.
It begins.
Dizzy's up top.
I'm out of here.
Somebody's there. Enemy A.
Focusing.
Enemy A. Reloading.
For you. Reloading.
Spike carrier's down.
Coming through.
Gotcha.
Spike down
Reloading.
A.
Stopping fire. Wingman's planting. Spike planted. Thanks, Wings. Enemy spotted A.
Last player standing.
So, do we mix it up? Double down? Let's talk.
Reloading. I suggest we keep winning.
Shift.
Cover going out. Shadows traveling.
Reloading.
Blinding.
Coming through!
Get him, wingman. Stopping fire.
Oh my god.
Last player standing.
Spike planted.
Ingat ka! Don't get stabbed. Bad way to go. Go, go, go!
Reloading.
We go!
Let's go.
Enemy spotted B.
Show me a target.
Cover going out. Cover going out.
Making
Let's
cover.
go.
Go, go, go!
Enemy spot. Plant the spike.
Fire in the hole!
Spike
One
stick.
enemy
Thanks,
remaining.
little man.
Gotta go!
I will rip the light from them.
Breaking them.
I'm out of here!
Reloading.
Shadows traveling.
Reloading. Enemy B.
Reloading. This way!
Dizzy's up. Wingman's gonna plant spike.
Wall raised.
Had your
Nice
fun.
try!
My turn.
Behind you.
Last player standing. One enemy remaining.
I'm out. I'm out. Go get him, buddy.
Clutch.
Nice one, good call.
Let's go.
Yeah, the boss.
I know what must be done.
I need a gun. Right there.
Gotta go! There! Go, go, go!
Reloading. Good luck. No distractions. Dizzy's up top.
Cover going out.
Go, go, go!
Run, little man.
I'm out of here! Wall raised. Coming through!
Spike planted.
Got one! Take this! Go, go, go!
Oh, yeah.
Enemy
charges.
spotted A.
Cover going out.
Playtime.
Last player standing. One enemy
You
remaining.
played
Nice,
well.
very
My
nice.
ultimate is ready.
Clutch.
Ah, very nice.
Match point.
They look
will.
tired.
Nice.
Finish it.
I need a gun. Right there.
Go, go, go!
I hope this one's exciting.
It was.
I'm out of here.
Shadows traveling. Cover going out.
Making cover. Wingman
Coming through.
landing. Reloading. Saw you, little homie. Spike sticky. Thanks, little man. Reloading.
Here. Watch out! Fire! Here we go!
Ah, no.
Rash is ready.
3 killed.
One enemy remaining.
Stealing sight.
Going again.
Nice one.
It is done.
Attackers win.
Rest now. I will keep watch.
Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Part 1. The seventh day. And the Spirit and the bride say,
So,
Come. And let him that heareth say, Come. And let him that is athirst come. And whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. I looked down the line, and I wondered. Everyone had always said that John would be a preacher when he grew up, just like his father. It has been so often that John, without ever thinking about it, had come to believe it himself. Not until the morning of his 14th birthday did he really begin to think about it, and by then it was already too late. His earliest memories, which were in a way his only memories, were of the hurry and brightness of Sunday mornings. They all rose together on that day. His father, who did not have to go to work and led them in prayer before breakfast. His mother, who dressed up on that day and looked almost young with her hair straightened, and on her head the close-fitting white cap that was the uniform of holy women. His younger brother, Roy, who was silent that day because his father was home. Sarah, who wore a red ribbon in her hair that day and was fondled by her father. And the baby, Ruth, who was dressed in pink and white and rode in her mother's arms to church. The church was not very far away, for block up Lenox Avenue, on a corner not far from the hospital. It was to this hospital that his mother had gone when Roy and Sarah and Ruth were born. John did not remember very clearly the first time she had gone to have Roy. Folks said that he had cried and carried on the whole time his mother was away. He remembered only enough to be afraid every time her belly began to swell, knowing that each time the swelling began it would not end until she was taken from him, to come back with a stranger. Each time this happened she became a little more of a stranger herself. She would soon be going away again, Roy said. He knew much more about such things than John. John had observed his mother closely, seeing no swelling yet, but his father had prayed one morning for the little voyager soon to be among them. And so John knew that Roy spoke the truth. Every Sunday morning, then, since John could remember, they had taken to the streets the Grimes family on their way to church. Sinners along the avenue watched him. Men still wearing their Sunday night clothes, wrinkled and dusty now, muddy-eyed and muddy-faced. And the women with harsh voices and tight, bright dresses, cigarettes between their finger or held tightly in the corners of their mouths. They talked, and laughed, and fought together, and the women fought like the men. John and Roy, passing these men and women, looked at one another briefly, John embarrassed and Roy amused. Roy would be like them when he grew up, if the Lord did not change his heart. These men and women they passed on Sunday mornings had spent the night in bars, or in cat houses, or on the streets, or on the rooftops, or under the stairs. They had been drinking. They had gone from cursing to laughter, to anger, to lust. Once he and Roy had watched a man and woman in the basement of a condemned house. They did it standing up. The woman had wanted 50 cents, and the man had flashed a razor. John had never watched again. He had been afraid. But Roy had watched them many times, and he told John he had done it with some girls down the block. And his mother and father, who went to church on Sundays, they did it too, and sometimes John heard them in the bedroom behind him, over the sound of rats' feet and rat screams, and the music and cursing from the harlot's house downstairs. Their church was called the Temple of the Fire Baptized. It was not the biggest church in Harlem, not yet the smallest, but John had been brought up to believe it was the holiest and best. His father was head deacon in this church. There were only two, the other a round, black man named Deacon Braithwaite, and he took up the collection and sometimes he preached. The pastor, Father James, was a genial, well-fed man with a face like a darker moon. It was he who preached on Pentecost Sundays, and led revivals in the summertime, and anointed and healed the sick. On Sunday mornings and Sunday nights the church was always full. On special Sundays it was full all day. The Grimes family arrived in a body, always a little late, usually in the middle of Sunday school, which began at 9 o'clock. This lateness was always their mother's fault, at least in the eyes of their father. She could not seem to get herself and the children ready on time, ever, and sometimes she actually remained behind, not to appear until the morning service. When they all arrived together, they separated upon entering the doors, father and mother going to sit in the adult class, which was taught by Sister McCandless, Sarah going to the infants class, John and Roy sitting in the intermediate, which was taught by Brother Alicia. "You got a special craving for something?" John looked at him. Roy was not in a good mood. "I ain't said nothing to you," he said. "Oh, I beg your pardon," said Roy in the shrill little girl tone he knew John hated. "What's the matter with you today?" John asked, angry, and trying at the same time to lend his voice as husky a pitch as possible. "Don't you let Roy bother you," said their mother. "He cross as two sticks this morning." "Yeah," said John. "I reckon." He and Roy watched each other. Then his plate was put before him, hominy grits and a scrap of bacon. He wanted to cry, like a child. "But, Mama, it's my birthday." He kept his eyes on his plate and began to eat. "You can talk about your daddy all you want to," said his mother, picking up her battle with Roy. "But one thing you can't say. You can't say he ain't always done his best to be a father to you and to see to it that you ain't never gone hungry." "I been hungry plenty of times," Roy said, proud to be able to score this point against his mother. "Wasn't his fault, then. Wasn't because he wasn't trying to feed you. Then man shoveled snow in zero weather when he ought been in bed just to put food in your belly." "Wasn't just my belly," said Roy indignantly. "He got a belly too, I know. It's a shame the way that man eats. I sure ain't asked him to shovel no snow for me." But he dropped his eyes, suspecting a flaw in his argument. "I just don't want him beating on me all the time," he said at last. "I ain't no dog." She sighed, and turned slightly away, looking out of the window. "Your daddy beats you," she said, "because he loves you." Roy laughed. "That ain't the kind of love I understand, old lady. What you reckon he'd do if he didn't love me?" "He'd let you go right on," she flashed. "Right on down to hell where it looks like you is just determined to go anyhow. Right on, Mr. Man, till somebody puts a knife in you, or takes you off to jail." "Mama," John asked suddenly, "is Daddy a good man?" He had not known that he was going to ask the question, and he watched in astonishment as her mouth tightened and her eyes grew dark. "That ain't no kind of question," she said mildly. "You don't know no better men, do you?" "Looks to me like he's a mighty good man," said Sarah. "He sure is praying all the time." "You children is young," their mother said, ignoring Sarah and sitting down again at the table. "And you don't know how lucky you is to have a father what worries about you and tries to see to it that you come up right." "Yeah," said Roy. "We don't know how lucky we is to have a father what don't want you to go to movies, and don't want you to play in the streets, and don't want you to have no friends, and he don't want this and he don't want that, and he don't want you to do nothing. We so lucky to have a father who just wants us to go to church and read the Bible and beller like a fool in front of the altar and stay home all nice and quiet, like a little mouse. Boy, we sure is lucky, all right. Don't know what I done to be so lucky. She laughed. You going to find out one day, she said. You mark my words. Yeah, said Roy. But it'll be too late then, she said. It'll be too late when you come to be sorry. Her voice had changed. For a moment her eyes met John's eyes, and John was frightened. He felt that her words, after the strange fashion God sometimes chose to speak to men, were dictated by heaven and were meant for him. He was 14, was it too late? And thus uneasiness was reinforced by the impression, which at that moment he realized had been his all along, that his mother was not saying everything she meant. What, he wondered, did she say to Aunt Florence when they talked together? Or to his father? What were her thoughts? Her face would never tell. And yet, looking down at him in a moment that was like a secret passing sign, her face did tell him. Her thoughts were bitter. I don't care, Roy said, rising. When I have children, I ain't going to treat them like this. John watched his mother. She watched Roy. I'm sure this ain't no way to be. Ain't got no right to have a house full of children if you don't know how to treat them. You mighty grown up this morning, his mother said. You be careful. And tell me something else, Roy said, suddenly leaning over his mother. Tell me how come he don't never let me talk to him like I talk to you? He's my father, ain't he? But he don't never listen to me. No, I all the time got to listen to him. Your father, she said, watching him, knows best. You listen to your father. I guarantee you won't end up in no jail. Roy sucked his teeth in fury. I ain't looking to go to no jail. You think that's all that's in the world is jails and churches? You ought to know better than that, Ma. I know, she said. There ain't no safety except you walk humble before the Lord. You're gonna find it out, too, one day. You go on hardhead. You going to come to grief. And suddenly Rot grinned. But you be there, won't you, Ma, when I'm in trouble? You don't know, she said, trying not to smile. How long the Lord's going to let me stay with you? Roy turned and did a dance step. That's all right, he said. I know the Lord ain't as hard as Daddy. Is he, boy? He demanded of John, and struck him lightly on the forehead. Boy, let me eat my breakfast, John muttered, though his plate had long been empty, and he was pleased that Roy had turned to him. That sure is a crazy boy, ventured Sarah soberly. Just listen, cried Roy. To the little Saint one, Daddy ain't never going to have trouble with her. That one, she was born holy. I bet the first words she ever said was, Thank you, Jesus. Ain't that so, Ma? You stop this foolishness, she said, laughing, and go on about your work. Can't nobody play the fool with you all morning? Oh, is you got work for me to do this morning? Well, I declare, said Roy. What you got for me to do? I got the woodwork in the dining room for you to do. And you going to do it, too, before you set foot out of this house. Now, why you want to talk like that, Ma? Is I said I wouldn't do it? You know I'm a right good worker when I got a mind. After I do it, can I go? You go ahead and do it and we'll see. You better do it right. I always do it right, said Roy. You won't know your old woodwork when I get through. John, said his mother, you sweep the front room for me like a good boy and dust the furniture. I'm gonna clean up in here. Yes'm, he said and rose. She had forgotten about his birthday. He swore he would not mention it. He would not think about it any more. To sweep the front room meant, principally, to sweep the heavy red and green and purple Oriental-style carpet that had once been that room's glory, but was now so faded that it was all one swimming color, and so frayed in places that it tangled with the broom. John hated sweeping this carpet, for dust rose, clogging his nose and sticking to his sweaty skin, and he felt that should be sweep it forever. The clouds of dust would not diminish, the rug would not be clean. It became in his imagination his impossible, lifelong task, his hard trial, like that of a man he had read about somewhere, whose curse it was to push a boulder up a steep hill, only to have the giant who guarded the hill roll the boulder down again, and so on, forever throughout eternity. He was still out there, that hapless man, somewhere at the other end of the earth, pushing his boulder up the hill. He had John's entire sympathy, for the longest and hardest part of his Saturday mornings was his voyage with the broom across this endless rug. And coming to the French doors that ended the living room and stopped the rug, he felt like an indescribably weary traveler who sees his home at last. Yet for each dustpan he so laboriously filled at the door still demons added to the rug 20 more. He saw in the expanse behind him the dust that he had raised settling again into the carpet, and he gritted his teeth, already on edge because of the dust that filled his mouth, and nearly wept to Thinel that so much labor brought so little reward. Nor was this the end of John's labor. For, having put away the broom and the dustpan, he took from the small bucket under the sink the dust rag and the furniture oil and a damp cloth, and returned to the living room to excavate, as it were, from the dust that threatened to bury them, his family's goods and gear. Thinking bitterly of his birthday, he attacked the mirror with the cloth, watching his face appear as out of a cloud. With a shock he saw that his face had not changed, that the hand of Satan was as yet invisible. His father had always said that his face was the face of Satan, and was there not something, in the lift of the eyebrow, in the way his rough hair formed a V on his brow, that bore witness to his father's words? In the eye there was a light that was not the light of heaven, and the mouth trembled lustful and lewd, to drink deep of the wines of hell. He stared at his face as though it were, as indeed it soon appeared to be, the face of a stranger who held secrets that John could never know. And, having thought of it as the face of a stranger, he tried to look at it as a stranger might, and tried to discover what other people saw. But he saw only details. 2 great eyes, and a broad, low forehead, and the triangle of his nose, and his enormous mouth, and the barely perceptible cleft in his chin, which was, his father said, the mark of the devil's little finger. These details did not help him, for the principle of their unity was undiscoverable, and he could not tell what he most passionately desired to know, whether his face was ugly or not. And he dropped his eyes to the mantelpiece, lifting one by one the objects that adorned it. The mantelpiece held, in brave confusion, photographs, greeting cards, flowered mottos, 2 silver candlesticks that held no candles, and a green metal serpent, poised to strike. Today, in his apathy, John stared at them, not seeing. He began to dust them with exaggerated care of the profoundly preoccupied. One of the mottos was pink and blue, and proclaimed in raised letters, which made the work of dusting harder. Come in the evening or come in the morning, come when you're looked for, or come without warning. 1,000 welcomes you'll find here before you, and the oftener you come here, the more we'll adore you. And the other, in letters of fire against a background of gold, stated, For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. John 3:16. These somewhat unrelated sentiments decorated either side of the mantelpiece, obscured a little by the silver candlesticks. Between these 2 extremes, the greeting cards, received year after year on Christmas or Easter or birthdays, trumpeted their glad tidings, while the green metal serpent, perpetually malevolent, raised its head proudly in the midst of these trophies, biding the time to strike. Against the mirror, like a procession, the photographs were arranged. These photographs were the true antiques of the family, which seemed to feel that a photograph should commemorate only the most distant past. The photographs of John and Roy, and of the 2 girls, which seemed to violate this unspoken law, served only in fact to prove it most iron-hard. They had all been taken in infancy, a time and a condition that the children could not remember. John in this photograph lay naked on a white counterpane, and people laughed and said that it was cunning. But John could never look at it without feeling shame and anger that his nakedness should be here so unkindly revealed. None of the other children was naked. No, Roy lay in the crib in a white gown and grinned toothlessly into the camera, and Sarah, somber at the age of 6 months, wore a white bonnet, and Ruth was held in her mother's arms. When people looked at these photographs and laughed, their laughter differed from the laughter with which they greeted the naked John. For this reason, when visitors tried to make advances to John, he was sullen, and they, feeling that for some reason he disliked them, retaliated by deciding that he was a funny child. Among the other photographs there was one of Aunt Florence, his father's sister, in which her hair, in the old-fashioned way, was worn high and tied with a ribbon. She had been very young when his photograph was taken, and had just come north. Sometimes, when she came to visit, she called the photograph to witness that she had indeed been beautiful in her youth. There was a photograph of his mother, not the one John liked and had seen only once, but one taken immediately after her marriage. And there was a photograph of his father, dressed in black, sitting on a country porch with his hands folded heavily in his lap. The photograph had been taken on a sunny day, and the sunlight brutally exaggerated the planes of his father's face. He stared into the sun, head raised, unbearable, and though it had been taken when he was young, it was not the face of a young man. Only something archaic in the dress indicated that this photograph had been taken long ago. At the time this picture was taken, Aunt Florence said, he was already a preacher, and had a wife who was now in heaven. That he had been a preacher at that time was not astonishing, for it was impossible to imagine that he had ever been anything else. But that he had had a wife in the so distant past who was now dead filled John with wonder by no means pleasant. If she had lived, John thought, then he would never have come north and met his mother. And this shadowy woman, dead so many years, whose name he knew had been Deborah, held in the fastness of her tomb, it seemed to John, the key to all those mysteries he so longed to unlock. It was she who had known his father in a life where John was not, and in a country John had never seen. When he was nothing, nowhere, dust, cloud, air, and sun, and falling rain. Not even thought of, said his mother. In heaven with the angels, said his aunt. She had known his father and shared his father's house. She had loved his father. She had known his father when lightning flashed and thunder rolled through heaven. And his father said, listen, God...
I'm out of here.
She had known him in the mornings of that far-off country when his father turned on his bed and opened his eyes.
Gotta go.
She had looked into those eyes.
I'm out of here.
Kicking like a mule and howling, and she had seen him weep when his mother died. He was a right young
Go, go, go.
She knew that John would never know. The purity of his father's eyes was
Gotta go. Back off.
Spike planted.
Smart move.
One enemy remaining.
Gotta go.
Good try.
I'm out of here. Go, go, go. Gotta go. I'm out of here.
I've cut through.
Unfrightened, moving with such grace and power, but he knew this could. He could not play their games. He could do something they could not do.
Go, go, go.
As one of his teachers said. But this brought him little in the way of consolation, for today he was terrified of his thoughts. He wanted to be with these boys in the street, headless and thoughtless, wearing out his treacherous and bewildering body. But now it was 11 o'clock, and in 2 hours his father would be home. And then they would eat, and then his mother would lead them in prayer, and then he would give them a Bible lesson.
Enemy
Here.
down.
Here.
Spike down B.
Suddenly, sitting at the window, and with a violence unprecedented,
Gotta go. Enemy spotted B. My ult's ready.
Spike down B.
I'm out of here.
Last player standing. 30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
That's 3.
Ah, sorry.
Better now. Clock ticking.
She smiled a shy, strained smile. You know you're your mother's right-hand man? He said nothing, and he did not smile, but watched her, wondering to what task this preamble led. She turned away, passing one damp hand across her forehead.
Go, go, go.
Here.
Gotta go. I'm out of here.
Coops.
Kitchen.
There.
Are you scared about something going, bro?
30 seconds
Go,
left.
go, go. There we go.
Spike planted.
You will not kill my allies.
Last player standing.
Hope on you. Heaven. Hold on.
Anyone else?
Nice try.
Listen up, you muckers. If I don't get back up, just give me a nudge. I might not be dead, just taking a wee kip.
I'm out of here. Gotta go.
No more.
Go, go, go.
It's a bro.
Go away.
Spike down B.
I'm out of here.
One enemy remaining.
That's 3.
Over there. Enemy spotted A. Decoy.
That was their best, diba? Gotta go. Go, go, go.
Right then. Some more of that, and they're in the shite.
I'm out of here. Gotta go.
Time to jump.
Credits if you need them.
Move. There.
A. Come A.
Scatter. You are powerless.
Or die!
Enemy spotted. Attacker spawn.
Spike planted.
Can't use it. Go, go, go.
Target down. Refreshing.
Take this. This way. I'm out of here.
One enemy remaining.
Reloading.
Go, go, go. Are you kidding me right now?
My ult is ready.
Clutch.
Ah, it was close.
we should do? I'll tell you. We should win.
Gotta go! Gotta go! I'm out of here.
Try not to die.
Go, go, go!
Enemy spotted B.
You had your fun. My turn.
Spike down B.
Go, go, go! My ult's ready.
Here.
Enemy spotted mid.
Reloading.
One enemy remaining. Spike down B. 30 seconds left.
Someone's in attacker spawn.
Reloading.
I'm out of here. Running low.
10 seconds left.
Oi, found you. Go, go, go. I'm out of here.
Pick something nice to kill them with. It's the least we can do.
Gotta go. Gotta go. I'm out of here.
Their omen will fall.
Enemy spotted A.
Go, go, go.
Many enemies, eh? Decoy.
Running low.
Enemy spotted A. Enemy spotted
Spike down A.
I'm out of here.
You're finished.
Bye-bye.
Last player standing.
Race it to the spike sites. Gotta go. Go, go, go. Quick feet, quick trigger.
I'll handle this.
Watch this!
B, B, B.
Enemy spotted B.
Bye. Enemy spotted B.
Spike down B. One enemy
Spark,
remaining.
move.
Last player standing.
Back like I never left!
Last player standing. Thirty seconds left.
Scatter.
I'm out of here.
Let's go.
I'm out of here.
Spike planted.
Gotta go. Go, go, go! Almost out. Door's good.
Oh,
Go, go, go! I didn't come here to
Ah,
die.
no time.
Clutch.
미쳤는데? Neon, leave some for me, yeah? Gotta go! I'm out of here.
Come on, guys, focus.
Let's go.
Don't push, don't push, don't push. Don't push, Jet. We are just defending.
Be faster.
GG.
Enemy spotted. Attacker spawn.
Ooh.
Spike down mid.
Spike.
Player standing.
This ping. My ping went went high.
Charge and shoot. Easy enough. Go, go, go! Gotta go!
Jump them.
So don't worry, just hide and pick some kills. It will be good. B, B, B.
Watch out!
You are powerless. Critical damage.
Spike down B.
You will not attack or die! Reloading. Yikes. Spike spotted B. Reload.
One enemy remaining.
Decoy.
Reloading.
30 seconds left.
Here. Here. Reloading. I'm out of here.
Sorry. This was taken.
GG, guys. Very nice.
Last round in the half.
Spend your money now. There's no bank in hell.
Go, go, go!
I'll show them. Lintik kayo.
Yo, let's go.
See ya.
Enemy spotted A.
Heaven.
Spike planted.
Here we go.
Surprise.
Almost out.
Last player standing.
That's right.
Switching sides.
Fight till the go, go, go. There.
Let's go A. All A.
Need to be all in one side.
Let's go all A.
Aizo, come A.
Aizo. Are you playing alone?
Here.
Move.
Cutting through.
Go, go, go. Gotta go. Spike planet. Gotta go.
Oh my god.
Last player standing. One enemy remaining.
3.
Nice try.
Aye, where to? I'm out of here.
I'll turn this around.
Shift. Oh my god.
Dropping smokes.
Enemy spotted A.
Enemy.
There.
Cutting through.
There.
Enemy spotted A.
Enemy spotted A. Enemy spotted A. Decoy.
You play. I'm out of here.
You're done.
Nice, you nice.
Enemy spotted A.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
Nice.
Not gotta go.
reminds me of this one time where I,
Go, go, go! There!
Gun here.
There!
Let's go B. Iso, why you play alone? Don't be like this.
Let's fly.
Let's go Glove.
Enemy spotted B.
Destabilizing.
Reloading.
Time to jump.
Alice!
Stopping fire.
You are powerless.
Multiple enemies B.
Can't use it.
Got the spike.
Spike down B.
dropping smokes.
Neutralized.
Reloading.
Our spike carrier is killed.
Spike down B.
Reloading. Here! Cat!
30 seconds left. One enemy
Enemy
remaining.
killed.
I got the spike.
Last player standing.
Where is this Vex planted?
Don't pick, don't pick, don't pick. Nice, very nice.
Nice.
Here.
Don't be spending too many brain cells figuring them out. Overthinking is just as bad as underthinking.
Go, go, go! I'm out of here.
Keep up.
Cutting through.
Shift.
I'll handle this.
I'm out of here.
Show me a target.
Go, go, go! Shortcut!
Reloading.
Spike planted.
Go, go, go!
Enemy spotted mid. Enemy spotted A.
Enemy spotted. Back off.
Enemy spotted A.
Reload.
Watch out!
Reloading.
One
GG.
enemy remaining. Last
GG, guys.
player standing.
Okay, we know the drill. Stick to your roles and we'll crush it. Gotta go! There!
Take them one by one.
No
Making
peeking!
cover.
Gotta go!
Focus. Time to jump.
Adapt or die!
My Potter broke.
Reloading.
My ult is ready.
They're dead. My ult's ready.
Last player standing. Spike down B.
Never left.
Last player standing.
I got the spike.
One enemy
That was
remaining.
close.
30 seconds left.
Spike planted.
الحمد لله. انت هذا الشوط خير. 10 minutes.
Clutch.
GG, very nice.
Brand new that one. I reckon I'll take a kip after this. I've earned it. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Gotta go.
Shift, guys.
What's this?
Plant the spike.
Enemy spotted A.
Give me those.
Enemy spotted.
This way.
Reloading. Plant the spike. Plant the spike.
Focusing. Reloading.
One enemy remaining.
Cutting through.
Go, go, go. My advice, don't get shot. Go, go, go. I'm out of here. There.
Nice out.
Gotta go.
Time to jump. Decoy.
Drop in a smoke.
Breaking down.
Go away. Spike planted.
Skedaddle off.
One enemy remaining.
Gotcha. My turn.
He's so damaged. He's 145.
One enemy remaining.
Just one tap, one shot. He may be in the top. I guess he want to save.
I don't care if there are 5 of them or 50 of them.
Nice.
Let's go.
I'm out of here. Go, go, go.
They're in our sights.
Go, go, go.
Here.
Our spike is down.
Spike down A.
Got the spike.
Spike carrier is killed. I got the spike. Reloading. Take this.
Our spike carrier is
I'm
dead.
outta here.
My ult's ready.
Coming through.
player standing.
Forgive me if I overextend. Old habit.
Gotta go! There! Need
There.
a drop. Need a drop. Thanks.
Okay, let's go.
I'll handle this.
Here. Enemy spotted B. Enemy spotted B.
I'm out of here.
Sage is down. Here.
Gotta go.
You are powerless.
Here.
Spike down B.
Oh no.
Down.
Enemy spotted B. One down.
One
Stand
enemy
aside.
remaining.
My ult is ready.
Is it? Change, Aizo. Change the weapon.
Last player standing.
He's, you're
30
right,
seconds
you're
left.
right, he's right.
Out.
Just out there.
Ten seconds left.
Playtime. No time.
Clutch.
GG.
Circle
ult
better
is
watch
ready.
their backs. I need a drop.
I'm out of here. Go, go, go. There.
I have ultimate, let's go B.
Thanks.
Ah, break's over.
Shift.
No peeking.
Stay down.
Go, go, go.
Reloading. No distractions.
You will not kill my
Destabilizing.
allies.
Show me a target. Decoy. Reloading.
My ult's ready.
Plant the spike. Gotta go. Coming through. Gotta go. Spike planted. There.
Fake teleport. Time to jump.
Here we go. Running
One
low.
enemy remaining.
Reloading.
Back like I never left.
I'm back for good.
I'm out of here.
Everyone is off, Daisy.
Match point.
They'll throw everything at us you can. Be ready.
It's a nice placement where they put the spike. Did you see that? You can't defuse it. This is a bug. Did you see that, guys?
Go, go, go!
Watch this.
I'm out of here. Go, go, go!
Reload.
Dropping smokes.
Decoy. Cutting through.
I'm out of here.
Fake teleport.
Reloading. There.
Cutting through.
Gotta go. This way.
Find that shit.
Plant the spike.
Heaven.
Spike planted.
Last player standing.
You can do it.
Portal closed.
One enemy remaining.
Logic. Playtime intelligence use.
Time to jump. Fake teleport.
Very nice.
Attackers
Anyone
win.
else think they can kill a god? Who
Nice.
were you, ancestor? Where the hell did you go?
And went to the cupboard. Her back was to him, and he watched her while she took down a bright, figured vase, filled with flowers only on the most special occasions, and emptied the contents into her palm. He heard the chink of money, which meant that she was going to send him to the store. She put the vase back and turned to face him, her palm loosely folded before her. I didn't never ask you, she said, what you wanted for your birthday, but you take this, son, and go out and get yourself something you think you want. And she opened his palm and put the money into it, warm and wet from her hand. In the moment that he felt the warm, smooth coins and her hand on his, John stared blindly at her face, so far above him. His heart broke and he wanted to put his head on her belly where the wet spot was, and cry. But he dropped his eyes and looked at his palm, at the small pile of coins. It ain't much there, she said. That's all right. Then he looked up, and she bent down and kissed him on the forehead. You getting to be, she said, putting her hand beneath his chin and holding his face away from her. A right big boy. You gonna be a mighty fine man, you know what? Your mama's counting on you. And he knew again that she was not saying everything she meant. In a kind of secret language, she was telling him today something that he must remember and understand tomorrow. He watched her face, his heart swollen with love for her and with an anguish, not yet his own, but he did not understand and that frightened him. Yes, Ma, he said, hoping that she would realize, despite his stammering tongue, the depth of his passion to please her. I know, she said with a smile, releasing him and rising. There's a whole lot of things you don't understand, but don't you fret. The Lord'll reveal to you in his own good time everything he wants you to know. You put your faith in the Lord, Johnny, and he'll surely bring you out. Everything works together for good for them that love the Lord. He had heard her say this before. It was her text, as set thine house in order was his father's. But he knew that today she was saying it to him especially. She was trying to help him because she knew he was in trouble. And this trouble was also her own, which she would never tell to John. And even though he was certain that they could not be speaking of the same things, for then, surely, she would be angry and no longer proud of him. This perception on her part and his avowal of her love for him lent to John's bewilderment a reality that terrified and a dignity that consoled him. Dimly, he felt that he ought to console her, and he listened, astounded, at the words that now fell from his lips. Yes, Mama. I'm going to try to love the Lord. At this there sprang into his mother's face something startling, beautiful, unspeakably sad, as though she were looking far beyond him at a long, dark road, and seeing on that road a traveler in perpetual danger. Was it he, the traveler, or herself, or was she thinking of the cross of Jesus? She turned back to the washtub, still with this strange sadness on her face. "You better go on now," she said, "before your daddy gets home." In Central Park, the snow had not yet melted on his favorite hill. This hill was in the center of the park, after he had left the circle of the reservoir, where he always found, outside the high wall of crossed wire, ladies white in fur coats, walking their great dogs, or old white gentlemen with canes. At a point that he knew by instinct and by the shape of the buildings surrounding the park, he struck out on a steep path overgrown with trees, and climbed a short distance until he reached the clearing that led to the hill. Before him, then, the slope stretched upward, and above it the brilliant sky, and beyond it, cloudy and far away, he saw the skyline of New York. He did not know why, but there arose in him an exultation and a sense of power, and he ran up the hill like an engine or a madman, willing to throw himself headlong into the city that glowed before him. But when he reached the summit he paused. He stood on the crest of the hill, hands clasped beneath his chin, looking down. Then he, John, felt like a giant who might crumble the city with his anger. He felt like a tyrant who might crush the city beneath his heel. He felt like a long-awaited conqueror at whose feet flowers would be strewn, and before whom multitudes cried, "Hosanna!" He would be, of all, the mightiest, the most beloved, the Lord's anointed. And he would live in this shining city which his ancestors had seen with longing from far away. For it was his. The inhabitants of the city had told him it was his. He had but to run down, crying, and they would take him to their hearts and shew him wonders his eyes had never seen. And still, on the summit of that hill he paused. He remembered the people he had seen in that city, whose eyes held no love for him, and he thought of their feet so swift and brutal, and the dark gray clothes they wore, and how when they passed they did not see him, or, if they saw him, they smirked, and how the lights, unceasing, crashed on and off above him, and how he was a stranger there. Then he remembered his father and his mother and all the arms stretched out to hold him back, to save him from this city where, they said, his soul would find perdition. And certainly perdition sucked at the feet of the people who walked there, and cried in the lights in the gigantic towers. The marks of Satan could be found in the faces of the people who waited at the doors of movie houses. His words were printed on the great movie posters that invited people to sin. It was the roar of the damned that filled Broadway, where motor cars and buses and the hurrying people disputed every inch with death. Broadway, the way that led to death, was broad, and many could be found thereon. But narrow was the way that led to life eternal, and few there were who found it. But he did not long for the narrow way, where all his people walked, where the houses did not rise, piercing, as it seemed, the unchanging clouds, but huddled, flat, ignoble, close to the filthy ground, where the streets and the hallways and the rooms were dark, and where the unconquerable odor was of dust, and sweat, and urine, and homemade gin. In the narrow way, the way of the cross, there awaited him only humiliation forever. There awaited him, one day, a house like his father's house, and a church like his father's, and a job like his father's, where he would grow old and black with hunger and toil. The way of the cross had given him a belly filled with wind and had bent his mother's back. They had never worn fine clothes, but here, where the buildings contested God's power and where the men and women did not fear God, here he might eat and drink to his heart's content and clothe his body with wondrous fabrics, rich to the eye and pleasing to the touch. And then what of his soul, which would one day come to die and stand naked before the judgment bar? What would his conquest of the city profit him on that day? To hurl away, for a moment of ease, the glories of eternity. These glories were unimaginable, but the city was real. He stood for a moment on the melting snow, distracted, and then began to run down the hill, feeling himself fly as the descent became more rapid, and thinking, I can climb back up. If it's wrong, I can always climb back up. At the bottom of the hill, where the ground abruptly leveled off onto a gravel path, he nearly knocked down an old white man with a white beard, who was walking very slowly and leaning on his cane. They both stopped, astonished, and looked at one another. John struggled to catch his breath and apologize, but old man smiled. John smiled back. It was as though he and the old man had between them a great secret, and the old man moved on. The snow glittered in patches all over the park. Ice under the pale, strong sun melted slowly on the branches and trunks of trees. He came out of the park at Fifth Avenue where, as always, the old-fashioned horse carriages were lined along the curb, their drivers sitting on the high seats with rugs around their knees, or standing in 2s and 3s near the horses, stamping their feet and smoking pipes and talking. Summer he had seen people riding in these carriages, looking like people out of books, or out of movies in which everyone wore old-fashioned clothes and rushed at nightfall over frozen road, hotly pursued by their enemies who wanted to carry them back to death. Look back, had cried a beautiful woman with long blonde curls, and see if we are pursued. And she had come, as John remembered, to a terrible end. Now he stared at the horses, enormous and brown and patient, stamping every now and again a polished hoof, and he thought of what it would be like to have one day a horse of his own. He would call it Ryder, and mount it at morning when the grass was wet, and from the horse's back look out over great, sun-filled fields, his own. Behind him stood his house, great and rambling and very new, and in the kitchen his wife, a beautiful woman, made breakfast, and the smoke rose out of the chimney, melting into the morning air. They had children, who called him Papa and for whom at Christmas he bought electric trains. And he had turkeys and cows and chickens and geese, and other horses besides Ryder. They had a closet full of whiskey and wine. They had cars, but what church did they go to, and what would he teach his children when they gathered around him in the evening? He looked straight ahead, down Fifth Avenue, where graceful women in fur coats walked, looking into the windows that held silk dresses and watches and rings. What church did they go to? And what were their houses like in the evening they took off these coats and these silk dresses, and put their jewelry in a box, and leaned back in soft beds to think for a moment before they slept of the day gone by? Did they read a verse from the Bible every night and fall on their knees to pray? But no, for their thoughts were not of God, and their way was not God's way. They were in the world, and of the world, and their feet laid hold on hell. Yet in school some of them had been nice to him, and it was hard to think of them burning in hell forever, they who were so gracious and beautiful now. Once, one winter when he had been very sick with a heavy cold that would not leave him, one of his teachers had bought him a bottle of cod liver oil, especially prepared with heavy syrup so that it did not taste so bad. This was surely a Christian act. His mother had said that God would bless that woman, and he had got better. They were kind, he was sire that they were kind, and on the day that he would bring himself to their attention they would surely love and honor him. This was not his father's opinion. His father said that all white people were wicked, and that God was going to bring them low. He said that white people were never to be trusted, and that they told nothing but lies, and that no one of them had ever loved a nigger. He, John, was a nigger, and he would find out, as soon as he got a little older, how evil white people could be. John had read about the things white people did to colored people. How, in the South, where his parents came from, white people cheated them of their wages and burned them and shot them, and did worse things, said his father, which the tongue could not endure to utter. He had read about colored men being burned in the electric chair for things they had not done. How in riots they were beaten with clubs. How they were tortured in prisons. How they were the last to be hired and the first to be fired. Niggers did not live on these streets where John now walked. It was forbidden, and yet he walked here and no one raised a hand against him. But did he dare to enter this shop out of which a woman now casually walked, carrying a great round box? Or this apartment before which a white man stood, dressed in a brilliant uniform? John knew he did not dare, not today, and he heard his father's laugh. No, nor tomorrow neither. For him there was the back door and the dark stairs and the kitchen or the basement. This world was not for him. If he refused to believe and wanted to break his neck trying, then he could try until the sun refused to shine. They would never let him enter. In John's mind then, the people and the avenue underwent a change, and he feared them and knew that one day he could hate them if God did not change his heart. He left Fifth Avenue and walked west toward the movie houses. Here on 42nd Street it was less elegant but not less strange. He loved the street, not for the people or the shops but for the stone lions that guarded the great main building of the public library, a building filled with book and unimaginably vast, and which he had never yet dared to enter. He might, he knew, for he was a member of the branch in Harlem and was entitled to take books from any library in the city. But he had never gone in because the building was so big that it must be full of corridors and marble steps, in the maze of which he would be lost and never find the book he wanted. And then everyone, all the white people inside, would know that he was not used to great buildings, or to many books, and they would look at him with pity. He would enter on another day when he had read all the books uptown, an achievement that would, he felt, lend him the poise to enter any building in the world. People, mostly men, leaned over the stone parapets of the raised park that surrounded the library, or walked up and bent to drink water from the public drinking fountains. Silver pigeons lighted briefly on the heads of the lions or the rims of fountains, and strutted along the walks. John loitered in front of Woolworth's, staring at the candy display, trying to decide what candy to buy, and buying one, for the store was crowded and he was certain that the salesgirl would never notice him, and before a vendor of artificial flowers, and crossed 6th Avenue where the automat was, and the park taxis and the shops which he would not look at today, that displayed in their windows dirty postcards and practical jokes. Beyond 6th Avenue the movie houses began, and now he studied the stills carefully, trying to decide which of all these theaters he should enter. He stopped at last before a gigantic, colored poster that represented a wicked woman, half undressed, leaning in a doorway, apparently quarreling with a blond man who stared wretchedly into the street. The legend above their heads was, "There's a fool like him in every family, and a woman next door to take him over." He decided to see this, for he felt identified with the blond young man, the fool of his family, and he wished to know more about his so blatantly unkind fate. And so he stared at the price above the ticket seller's window and, showing her his coins, received the piece of paper that was charged with the power to open doors. Having once decided to enter, he did not look back at the street again for fear that one of the saints might be passing and, seeing him, might cry out his name and lay hands on him to drag him back. He walked very quickly across the carpeted lobby, looking at nothing, and pausing only to see his ticket torn, half of it thrown into a silver box and half returned to him. And then the usherette opened the doors of this dark palace, and with a flashlight held behind her took him to his seat. Not even then, having pushed past a wilderness of knees and feet to reach his designated seat, did he dare to breathe. Nor, out of a last sick hope for forgiveness, did he look at the screen. He stared at the darkness around him, and at the profiles that gradually emerged from this gloom, was so like the gloom of hell. He waited for this darkness to be shattered by the light of the second coming, for the ceiling to crack upward, revealing, for every eye to see, the chariots of fire on which descended a wrathful God and all the host of heaven. He sank far down in his seat, as though his crouching might make him invisible and deny his presence there. But then he thought, not yet. The day of judgment is not yet. And voices reached him, the voices no doubt of the hapless man and the evil woman, and he raised his eyes helplessly and watched the screen. The woman was most evil. She was blonde and pasty white, and she had lived in London, which was in England, quite some time ago, judging from her clothes, and she coughed. She had a terrible disease, tuberculosis, which he had heard about. Someone in his mother's family had died of it. She had a great many boyfriends, and she smoked cigarettes and drank. When she met the young man, who was a student and who loved her very much, she was very cruel to him. She laughed at him because he was a cripple. She took his money and she went out with other men, and she lied to the student, who was certainly a fool. He limped about, looking soft and sad, and soon all John's sympathy was given to this violent and unhappy woman. He understood her when she raged and shook her lips and threw back her head in laughter so furious that it seemed the veins of her neck would burst. She walked the cold, foggy streets, a little woman and not pretty, with a lewd, brutal swagger, saying to the whole world, "You can kiss my arse." Nothing tamed or broke her. Nothing touched her, neither kindness, nor scorn, nor hatred, nor love. She had never thought of prayer. It was unimaginable that she would ever bend her knees and come crawling along a dusty floor to anybody's altar, weeping for forgiveness. Perhaps her pride was so great that she did not need forgiveness. She had fallen from that high estate which God had intended for men and women, and she made her fall glorious because it was so complete. John could not have found in his heart, had he dared to search it, any wish for her redemption. He wanted to be like her, only more powerful, more thorough, and more cruel. To make those around him, all who hurt him, suffer as she made the students suffer, and laugh in their faces when they asked pity for their pain. He would have asked no pity, and his pain was greater than theirs. "Go on, girl," he whispered, as the student, facing her implacable ill will, sighed and wept. "Go on, girl." One day he would talk like that. He would face them and tell them how much he hated them, how they had made him suffer, how he would pay them back. Nevertheless, when she came to die, which she did eventually, looking more grotesque than ever, as she deserved, his thoughts were abruptly arrested. and he was chilled by the expression on her face. She seemed to stare endlessly outward and down, in the face of a wind more piercing than any she had felt on earth, feeling herself propelled with speed into a kingdom where nothing could help her, neither her pride, nor her courage, nor her glorious wickedness. In the place where she was going, it was not these things that mattered but something else, for which she had no name, only a cold intimation, something that she could not alter in any degree, and that she had never thought of. She began to cry, her depraved face breaking into an infant's grimace, and they moved away from her, leaving her dirty in a dirty room, alone to face her maker. The scene faded out and she was gone, and though the movie went on, allowing the student to marry another girl, darker and very sweet, but by no means so arresting, John thought of this woman and her dreadful end. Again, had the thought not been blasphemous, he would have thought that it was the Lord who had led him into this theater to show him an example of the wages of sin. The movie ended and people stirred around him. The newsreel came on, and while girls in bathing suits paraded before him and boxers growled and fought, and baseball players ran home safe and presidents and kings of countries that were only names to him moved briefly across the flickering square of light, John thought of hell, of his soul's redemption, and struggled to find a compromise between the way that led to life everlasting and the way that ended in the pit. But there was none, for he had been raised in the truth. He could not claim, as African savages might be able to claim, that no one had brought him the gospel. His father and mother and all the saints had taught him from his earliest childhood what was the will of God. Either he arose from this theater, never to return, putting behind him the world and its pleasures, its honors and its glories, or he remained here with the wicked and partook of their certain punishment. Yes, it was a narrow way, and John stirred in his seat, not daring to feel it God's injustice that he must make so cruel a choice. As John approached his home again in the late afternoon, he saw little Sarah, her coat unbuttoned, come flying out of the house and run the length of the street away from him into the far drugstore. Instantly, he was frightened. He stopped a moment, staring blankly down the street, wondering what could justify such hysterical haste. It was true that Sarah was full of self-importance, and made any errand she ran seem a matter of life or death. Nevertheless, she had been sent on an errand, and with such speed that her mother had not had time to make her button up her coat. Then he felt weary. If something had really happened, it would be very unpleasant upstairs now, and he did not want to face it. But perhaps it was simply that his mother had a headache and had sent Sarah to the store for some aspirin. But if this were true, it meant that he would have to prepare supper, and take care of the children, and be naked under his father's eyes all the evening long. And he began to walk more slowly. There were some boys standing on the veranda. They watched him as he approached, and he tried not to look at them and to approximate the swagger with which they walked. One of them said, as he mounted the short, stone steps and started into the hall, "Boy, your brother was hurt real bad today." He looked at them in a kind of dread, not daring to ask for details, and he observed that they, too, looked as though they had been in a battle. Something hangdog in their looks suggested that they had been put to flight. Then he looked down, and saw that there was blood at the threshold, and blood spattered on the tile floor of the vestibule. He looked again at the boys, who had not ceased to watch him, and hurried up the stairs. The door was half open, for Sarah's return, no doubt, and he walked in, making no sound, feeling a confused impulse to flee. There was no one in the kitchen, though the light was burning. The lights were on all through the house. On the kitchen table stood a shopping bag filled with groceries, and he knew that his Aunt Florence had arrived. The washtub, where his mother had been washing earlier, was open still, and filled the kitchen with a sour smell. There were drops of blood on the floor here too, and there had been small, smudged coins of blood on the stairs as he walked up. All this frightened him terribly. He stood in the middle of the kitchen, trying to imagine what had happened, and preparing himself to walk into the living room, where all the family seemed to be. Roy had been in trouble before, but this new trouble seemed to be the beginning of the fulfillment of a prophecy. He took off his coat, dropping it on a chair, and was about to start into the living room when he heard Sarah running up the steps. He waited, and she burst through the door, carrying a clumsy parcel. "What happened?" he whispered. She stared at him in astonishment, and a certain wild joy. He thought again that he really did not like his sister. Catching her breath, she blurted out, triumphantly, "Roy got stabbed with a knife," and rushed into the living room. Roy got stabbed with a knife. Whatever this meant, it was sure that his father would be at his worst tonight. John walked slowly into the living room. His father and mother, a small basin of water between them, knelt by the sofa where Roy lay, and his father was washing the blood from Roy's forehead. It seemed that his mother, whose touch was so much more gentle, had been thrust aside by his father, who could not bear to have anyone else touch his wounded son. And now she watched, one hand in the water, and the other in a kind of anguish at her waist, which was circled still by the improvised apron of the morning. Her face, as she watched, was full of pain and fear, of tension barely supported, and of pity that could scarcely have been expressed had she filled all the world with her weeping. His father muttered sweet, delirious things to Roy, and his hands, when he dipped them again in the basin and wrung out the cloth, were trembling. Aunt Florence, still wearing her hat and carrying her handbag, stood a little removed, looking down at them with a troubled, terrible face. Then Sarah bounded into the room before him, and his mother looked up, reached out for the package and saw him. She said nothing, but she looked at him with a strange, quick intentness, almost as though there were a warning on her tongue which at the moment she did not dare to utter. His Aunt Florence looked up and said, "We been wondering where you was, boy. This bad brother of yours done gone out and got hisself hurt." But John understood from her tone that the fuss was, possibly, a little greater than the danger. Roy was not, after all, going to die, and his heart lifted a little. Then his father turned and looked at him. "Where you been, boy?" he shouted. "All this time. Don't you know you's needed here at home?" More than his words. His face caused John to stiffen instantly with malice and fear. His father's face was terrible in anger, but now there was more than anger in it. John saw now what he had never seen there before, except in his own vindictive fantasies. A kind of wild, weeping terror that made the face seem younger, and yet at the same time unutterably older and more cruel. And John knew, in the moment his father's eyes swept over him, that he hated John because John was not lying on the sofa where Roy lay. John could scarcely meet his father's eyes, and yet, briefly, he did, saying nothing, feeling in his heart an odd sensation of triumph, and hoping in his heart that Roy, to bring his father low, would die. His mother had unwrapped the package and was opening a bottle of peroxide. "Here," she said. "You better wash it with this now." Her voice was calm and dry. She looked at his father briefly, her face unreadable, as she handed him the bottle and the cotton. "This going to hurt," his father said, in such a different voice, so sad and tender, turning again to the sofa. "But you just be a little man and hold still. It ain't going to take long." John watched and listened, hating him. Roy began to moan. Aunt Florence moved to the mantelpiece and put her handbag down near the metal serpent. From the room behind, John heard the baby begin to whimper. "John," said his mother, "go and pick her up like a good boy." Her hands, which were not trembling, were still busy. She had opened the bottle of iodine and was cutting up strips of bandage. John walked into his parents' bedroom and picked up the squalling baby, who was wet. The moment Ruth felt him lift her up, she stopped crying and stared at him with a wide-eyed, pathetic stare, as though she knew that there was trouble in the house. John laughed at her so ancient-seeming distress. He was very fond of his baby sister, and whispered in her ear as he started back to the living room. "Now, you let your big brother tell you something, baby. Just as soon as you's able to stand on your feet, you run away from this house. Run far away." He did not quite know why he said this, or where he wanted her to run, but it made him feel instantly better. His father was saying, as John came back into the room, "I'm sure going to be having some questions to ask you in a minute, old lady. I'm going to be wanting to know just how come you let this boy go out and get half killed." "Oh, no, you ain't," said Aunt Florence. "You ain't going to be starting none of that mess this evening. You know right doggone well that Roy don't never ask nobody if he can do nothing. He just go right ahead and do like he pleases. Elizabeth sure can't put no ball and chain on him. She got her hands full right here in this house, and it ain't her fault if Roy got ahead just as hard as his father's. You got an awful lot to say. Look like for once you could keep from putting your mouth in my business." He said this without looking at her. "It ain't my fault," she said, "that you was born a fool and always done been a fool and ain't never going to change. I swear to my father you'd try the patience of Job. I done told you before," he said, He had not ceased working over the moaning Roy, and was preparing now to dab the wound with iodine. That I didn't want you coming in here and using that gutter language in front of my children. Don't you worry about my language, brother, she said with spirit. You better start worrying about your life. What these children here ain't going to do them near as much harm as what they see. What they see, his father muttered, is a poor man trying to serve the Lord. That's my life. Then I guarantee you, she said, that they going to do their best to keep it from being their life. You mark my words. He turned and looked at her, and intercepted the look that passed between the two women. John's mother, for reasons that were not at all his father's reasons, wanted Aunt Florence to keep still. He looked away ironically. John watched his mother's mouth tighten bitterly as she dropped her eyes. His father, in silence, began bandaging Roy's forehead. It's just the mercy of God, he said at last, that this boy didn't lose his eye. Look here. His mother leaned over and looked into Roy's face with a sad, sympathetic murmur. Yet, John felt, she had seen instantly the extent of the danger to Roy's eye and to his life, and was beyond that worry now. Now she was merely marking time, as it were, and preparing herself against the moment when her husband's anger would turn, full force, against her. His father now turned to John, who was standing near the French doors with Ruth in his arms. You come here, boy, he said, and see what them white folks done to your brother. John walked over to the sofa, holding himself as proudly beneath his father's furious eyes as a prince approaching the scaffold. Look here, said his father, grasping him roughly by one arm. Look at your brother. John looked down at Roy, who gazed at him with almost no expression in his dark eyes. But John knew by the weary, impatient set of Roy's young mouth that his brother was asking that none of this be held against him. It wasn't his fault or John's, Roy's eyes said, that they had such a crazy father. His father, with the air of one forcing the sinner to look down into the pit that is to be his portion, moved away slightly so that John could see Roy's wound. Roy had been gashed by a knife, luckily not very sharp, from the center of his forehead where his hair began, downward to the bone just above his left eye. The wound described a kind of crazy half-moon and ended in a violent, fuzzy tail that was the ruin of Roy's eyebrow. Time would darken the half-moon wound into Roy's dark skin, but nothing would bring together again the so violently divided eyebrow. This crazy lift, this question, would remain with him forever, and emphasize forever something mocking and sinister in Roy's face. John felt a sudden impulse to smile, but his father's eyes were on him and he fought the impulse back. Certainly the wound was now very ugly, and very red, and must, John felt, with a quickened sympathy toward Roy, who had not cried out, have been very painful. He could imagine the sensation caused when Roy staggered into the house, blinded by his blood. But just the same, he wasn't dead, he wasn't changed. He would be in the streets again the moment he was better. You see? Came now from his father. It was white folks. Some of them white folks you like so much that tried to cut your brother's throat. John thought, with immediate anger and with a curious contempt for his father's inexactness, that only a blind man, however white, could possibly have been aiming at Roy's throat. And his mother said with a calm insistence, and he was trying to cut theirs. Him and them bad boys. Yes, said Aunt Florence. I ain't heard you ask that boy nary a question about how all this happened. Look like you just determined to raise Cain anyhow and make everybody in this house suffer because something done happened to the apple of your eye. I done asked you, cried his father in a fearful exasperation, to stop running your mouth. Don't none of this concern you. This is my family and this is my house. You want me to slap you side of the head? You slap me, she said with a placidity equally fearful. And I do guarantee you you won't do no more slapping in a hurry. Hush now, said his mother, rising. Ain't no need for all this. What's done is done. We ought to be on our knees, thanking the Lord it weren't no worse. Amen to that, said Aunt Florence. Tell that foolish nigger something. You can tell that foolish son of yours something, he said to his wife with venom, having decided, it seemed, to ignore his sister. Him standing there with them big buck eyes. You can tell him to take this like a warning from the Lord. This is what white folks does to niggers. I been telling you, now you see. He better take it like a warning? Shrieked Aunt Florence. He better take it? Why, Gabriel, it ain't him went halfway across the city to get in a fight with white boys. This boy in the sofa went deliberately with a whole lot of other boys, all the way to the west side, just looking for a fight. I declare, I do wonder what goes on in your head. You know right well, his mother said, looking directly at his father, that Johnny don't travel with the same class of boys as Roy goes with. You done beat Roy too many times, here in this very room for going out with them bad boys. Roy got himself hurt this afternoon because he was out doing something he didn't have no business doing, and that's the end of it. You ought to be thanking your Redeemer he ain't dead. And for all the care you take of him, he said. He might as well be dead. Don't look like you much care whether he lives or dies. Lord have mercy, said Aunt Florence. He's my son too, his mother said with heat. I carried him in my belly for 9 months and I know him just like I know his daddy, and they's just exactly alike. Now, you ain't got no right in the world to talk to me like that. I reckon you know, he said, choked and breathing hard, all about a mother's love. I sure reckon on you telling me how a woman can sit in the house all day and let her own flesh and blood go out and get half butchered. Don't you tell me you don't know no way to stop him, because I remembered my mother, God rest her soul, and she'd have found a way. She was my mother too, said Aunt Florence. And I recollect, if you don't, you being brought home many a time more dead than alive. She didn't find no way to stop you. She wore herself out beating on you, just like you've been wearing yourself out beating on this boy here. My, he said. You got a lot to say. I ain't doing a thing, she said, but trying to talk some sense into your big, black, hard head. You better stop trying to blame everything on Elizabeth and look to your own wrongdoings. Never mind, Florence, his mother said. It's all over and done with now. I'm out of this house, he shouted. Every day the Lord sends, working to put the food in these children's mouths. Don't you think I got a right to ask the mother of these children to look after them and see that they don't break their necks before I get back home? You ain't got but one child, she said. That's liable to go out and break his neck, and that's Roy, and you know it. And I don't know how in the world you expect me to run this house and look after these children and keep running around the block after Roy. No, I can't stop him, I done told you that, and you can't stop him neither. You don't know what to do with this boy, and that's why you all the time trying to fix the blame on somebody. Ain't nobody to blame, Gabriel. You just better pray God to stop him before somebody puts another knife in him and put him in his grave. They stared at each other a moment in an awful pause, she with a startled, pleading question in her eyes. Then, with all his might, he reached out and slapped her across the face. She crumpled at once, hiding her face with one thing hand, and Aunt Florence moved to hold her up. Sarah watched all this with greedy eyes. Then Roy sat up and said in shaking voice, Don't you slap my mother. That's my mother. You slap her again, you black bastard, and I swear to God I'll kill you. In the moment that these words filled the room, Ad hung in the room like the infinitesimal moment of hanging, jagged light that precedes an explosion. John and his father were staring into each other's eyes. John thought for that moment that his father believed the words had come from him. His eyes were so wild and depthlessly malevolent, and his mouth was twisted into such snarl of pain. Then, in the absolute silence that followed Roy's words, John saw that his father was not seeing him, was not seeing anything unless it were a vision. John wanted to turn and flee, as though he had encountered in the jungle some evil beast, crouching and ravenous, with eyes like hell unclosed. And exactly as though, on a road's turning, he found himself staring at certain destruction. He found that he could not move. Then his father turned and looked down at Roy. What did you say? His father asked. I told you, said Roy, not to touch my mother. You cursed me, said his father. Roy said nothing. Neither did he drop his eyes. Gabriel, said his mother, Gabriel, let us pray. His father's hands were at his waist, and he took off his belt. Tears were in his eyes. Gabriel, cried Aunt Florence, ain't you done playing the fool for tonight? Then his father raised his belt, and it fell with a whistling sound on Roy, who shivered and fell back, his face to the wall. But he did not cry out, and the belt was raised again and again. The air rang with the whistling and the crack against Roy's flesh, and the baby Ruth began to scream. My lord, his father whispered. My lord, my lord. He raised the belt again, but Aunt Florence caught it from behind and held it. His mother rushed over to the sofa and caught Roy in her arms, crying as John had never seen a woman, or anybody, cry before. Roy caught his mother around the neck and held on to her as though he were drowning. Hid Aunt Florence and his father faced each other. "Yes, Lord," Aunt Florence said. "You was born wild and you's going to die wild, but ain't no use to try to take the whole world with you. You can't change nothing, Gabriel. You ought to know that by now." John opened the church door with his father's key at 6 o'clock. Tari service officially began at 8, but it could begin at any time, whenever the Lord moved one of the saints to enter the church and pray. It was seldom, however, that anyone arrived before 8:30, the Spirit of the Lord being sufficiently tolerant to allow the saints time to do their Saturday night shopping, clean their houses, and put their children to bed. John closed the door behind him and stood in the narrow church aisle, hearing behind him the voices of children playing, and ruder voices, the voices of their elders, cursing and crying in the streets. It was dark in the church. Street lights had been snapping on all around him on the populous avenue. The light of the day was gone. His feet seemed planted on this wooden floor. They did not wish to carry him one step further. The darkness and silence of the church pressed on him, cold as judgment, and the voices crying from the window might have been crying from another world. John moved forward, hearing his feet crack against the sagging wood, to where the golden cross on the red field of the altar cloth glowed like smothered fire, and switched on one weak light. In the air of the church hung, perpetually, the odor of dust and sweat. For, like the carpet in his mother's living room, the dust of this church was invincible. And when the saints were praying or rejoicing, their bodies gave off an acrid, steamy smell, a marriage of the odors of dripping bodies and soaking, starched white linen. It was a storefront church and had stood, for John's lifetime, on the corner of this sinful avenue, facing the hospital to which criminal wounded and dying were carried almost every night. The saints, arriving, had rented this abandoned store and taken out the fixtures, had painted the walls and built a pulpit, moved in a piano and camp chairs, and bought the biggest Bible they could find. They put white curtains in the show window, and painted across this window temple of the fire baptized. Then they were ready to do the Lord's work. And the Lord, as he had promised to the 2 or 3 first gathered together, sent others. And these brought others and created a church. From this parent branch, if the Lord blessed, other branches might grow and a mighty work be begun throughout the city and throughout the land. In the history of the temple, the Lord has raised up evangelists and teachers and prophets, and called them out into the field to do his work, to do up and down the land carrying the gospel, or to raise other temples in Philadelphia, Georgia, Boston, or Brooklyn. Wherever the Lord led, they followed. Every now and again one of them came home to testify of the wonders the Lord had worked through him, or her. And sometimes on a special Sunday they all visited one of the nearest churches of the Brotherhood. There had been a time, before John was born, when his father had also been in the field. But now, having to earn for his family their daily bread, it was seldom that he was able to travel further away than Philadelphia, and then only for a very short time. His father no longer, as he had once done, led great revival meetings, his name printed large on placards that advertised the coming of a man of God. His father had once had a mighty reputation. But all this, it seemed, had changed since he had left the South. Perhaps he ought now to have a church of his own. John wondered if his father wanted that. He ought, perhaps, to be leading, as Father James now led, a great flock to the kingdom. But his father was only a caretaker in the house of God. He was responsible for the replacement of burnt-out light bulbs, and for the cleanliness of the church and the care of the Bibles and the hymn books and the placards on the walls. On Friday night he conducted the young ministers' service and preached with them. Rarely did he bring the message on a Sunday morning. Only if there was no one else to speak was his father called upon. He was a kind of fill-in speaker, a holy handyman. Yet he was treated, so far as John could see, with great respect. None of the saints in any case, had ever reproached or rebuked his father, or suggested that his life was anything but spotless. Nevertheless, this man, God's minister, had struck John's mother, and John had wanted to kill him, and wanted to kill him still. John has swept one side of the church, and the chairs were still piled in the space before the altar when there was a knocking at the door. When he opened the door he saw that it was Alicia, come to help him. "Praise the Lord," said Alicia, standing on the doorstep, grinning. "Praise the Lord," said John. This was the greeting always used among the saints. Father Alicia came in, slamming the door behind him and stamping his feet. He had probably just come from a basketball court. His forehead was polished with recent sweat and his hair stood up. He was wearing his green woolen sweater, on which was stamped the letter of his high school, and his shirt was open at the throat. "You ain't cold like that?" John asked, staring at him. "No, little brother, I ain't cold. You reckon everybody's frail like you? It ain't only the little ones gets carried to the graveyard," John said. He felt unaccustomedly bold and lighthearted. The arrival of Alicia had caused his mood to change. Alicia, who had started down the aisle towards the back room, turned to stare at John with astonishment and menace. "Ah," he said, "I see you fixing to be sassy with brother Alicia tonight. I'm gonna have to give you a little correction. You just wait till I wash my hands. Ain't no need to wash your hands if you come here to work. Just take hold of that mop and put some soap and water in the bucket." "Lord," said Alicia, running water into the sink, and talking, it seemed, to the water. "That sure is a sassy nigger out there. I sure hope he don't get hisself hurt one of these days. Running his mouth that-a-way. Look like he just won't stop till somebody busts him in the eye." He sighed deeply and began to lather his hands. "Here I come running all the way so he wouldn't bust a gut lifting one of them chairs, and all he got to say is, 'Put some water in the bucket. Can't do nothing with a nigger no-how.'" He stopped and turned to face John. "Auntie, you got no manners, boy. You better learn how to talk to old folks. You better get out here with the mop and pail. We ain't got all night." "Keep on," said Alicia. "I see I'm going to have to give you your lumps tonight." He disappeared. John heard him in the toilet, and then over the thunderous water, he heard him knocking things over in the back room. "Now what you doing? Boy, leave me alone. I'm fixing to work." "It sure sounds like it." John dropped his broom and walked into the back. Alicia had knocked over a pile of camp chairs, folded in the corner, and stood over them angrily, holding the mop in his hand. "I keep telling you not to hide that mop back there. Can't nobody get at it? I always get at it. Ain't everybody as clumsy as you?" Alicia let fall the stiff gray mop and rushed at John, catching him off balance and lifting him from the floor. With both arms tightening around John's waist, he tried to cut John's breath, watching him meanwhile with a smile that, as John struggled and squirmed, became a set, ferocious grimace. With both hands John pushed and pounded against the shoulders and biceps of Alicia, and tried to thrust with his knees against Alicia's belly. Usually such a battle was soon over, since Alicia was so much bigger and stronger and as a wrestler so much more skilled. But tonight John was filled with a determination not to be conquered, or at least to make the conquest dear. With all the strength that was in him he fought against Alicia, and he was filled with a strength that was almost hatred. He kicked, pounded, twisted, pushed, using his lack of size to confound and exasperate Alicia, whose damp fists, joined at the small of John's back, soon slipped. It was a deadlock. He could not tighten his hold, John could not break it. And so they turned, battling in the narrow room, and the odor of Alicia's sweat was heavy in John's nostrils. He saw the veins rise on Alicia's forehead and in his neck. His breath became jagged and harsh, and the grimace on his face became more cruel. And John, watching these manifestations of his power, was filled with a wild delight. They stumbled against the folding chairs, and Alicia's foot slipped and his hold broke. They stared at each other, half grinning. John slumped to the floor, holding his head between his hands. "I didn't hurt you none, did I?" Alicia asked. John looked up. "Me? No, I just want to catch my breath." Alicia went to the sink and splashed cold water on his face and neck. "I reckon you going to let me work now," he said. "It wasn't me that stopped you."
Certainly without caring, for Hadleyburg was sufficient unto itself. A rap for strangers or their opinions. Still, it would have been well to make an exception in this one's case, for he was a bitter man and revengeful. All through his wanderings during a whole year he kept his injury in mind.
It interacts with existing knowledge, ability to recognize patterns and make predictions based on subtle cues, often without conscious awareness. Through years of experience, the paramedic had unknowingly developed the ability to recognize the facial patterns associated with heart problems. Her brain had catalogued these cues, creating an automatic response system that allowed her to identify potential issues quickly. This phenomenon isn't unique to medical professionals. Similar stories abound in various fields. Military analysts can distinguish between friendly and enemy aircraft on radar screens based on minute differences. Art curators can spot forgeries that fool even sophisticated tests. Experienced radiologists can predict where a stroke will develop before any obvious signs are visible. These examples highlight the incredible pattern recognition capabilities of the human brain. Our minds are constantly taking in information from our surroundings, analyzing it, and making predictions. With enough repetition, we begin to notice important cues automatically, without conscious thought. This automatic processing is the foundation of every habit we have. It's what allows us to perform complex behaviors without actively thinking about each step. Consider how you don't need to consciously think about each muscle movement involved in driving a car or typing on a keyboard. These actions have become habitual, freeing up mental resources for other tasks. However, this automaticity is a double-edged sword. While it makes many aspects of our lives more efficient, it can also lead us to fall into patterns of behavior that may not serve us well. We might find ourselves reaching for our phones every time we feel a moment of boredom, or automatically grabbing a snack when we pass the kitchen, even if we're not hungry. The key to harnessing the power of habits while avoiding their potential pitfalls lies in becoming more aware of our automatic behaviors. By shining a light on the cues that trigger our habits, the cravings that drive them, the responses we've learned, and the rewards we receive, we can begin to exert more conscious control over our actions. This doesn't mean we need to eliminate automaticity altogether. That would be exhausting and counterproductive. Instead, the goal is to ensure that our automatic behaviors are aligned with our long-term goals and values. We want to cultivate habits that serve us, not ones that hinder our growth or happiness. It's important to note that habit change is not about achieving perfection. It's about consistently making choices that align with the person we want to become. Every action is a vote for the type of person we wish to be. We don't need to win every vote, but we need to win the majority to see real change. Moreover, habits don't exist in isolation. They're part of larger systems in our lives, often interconnected in complex ways. Changing one habit can have ripple effects, influencing other behaviors and aspects of our lives. This interconnectedness can work in our favor sometimes. Changing one keystone habit can lead to a cascade of positive changes across various areas of life. As we work on our habits, it's crucial to approach the process with patience and self-compassion. Habit formation and change take time. Our brains require repeated experiences to forge new neural pathways and strengthen them to the point of automaticity. This process can't be rushed, but it can be guided. It's also worth considering the broader implications of habit formation beyond individual behavior. Collective habits form the basis of culture, and societal change often involves shifting the habits of many individuals. By understanding and mastering our own habits, we not only improve our personal lives but potentially contribute to positive changes on a larger scale. In conclusion, the science of habit formation offers powerful insights into human behavior and personal growth. By understanding the habit loop of cue, craving, response, and reward, and applying the 4 laws of behavior change, we gain a framework for analyzing and modifying our automatic behaviors. This knowledge empowers us to shape our habits intentionally, aligning our automatic behaviors with our deepest values and aspirations. The journey of habit change is not about achieving perfection or adhering to rigid routines. It's about making consistent, small choices that compound over time, gradually sculpting us into the individuals we aspire to be. It's a process of continuous growth and refinement, where each small action is a vote for our desired identity. As we navigate this process, we must approach it with patience, self-compassion, and a long-term perspective. Meaningful change doesn't happen overnight, but through the accumulation of many small, consistent actions over time. By focusing on the process rather than just the outcome, we can find joy and fulfillment in the journey of personal growth itself. Ultimately, mastering our habits is about taking control of our own evolution. It's about consciously shaping our behaviors, our identities, and by extension, our lives. In doing so, we don't just change our routines, we change our worlds, opening up new possibilities and creating the freedom to live life on our own terms. The power of habit formation lies not just in its ability to automate our behaviors, but in its potential to transform who we are and who we can become. In our fast-paced world, we often find ourselves operating on autopilot, our actions guided by deeply ingrained habits that we may not even be consciously aware of. These habits, whether beneficial or detrimental, shape our daily lives and ultimately determine our long-term outcomes. Understanding and harnessing the power of habits is crucial for personal growth and achieving our goals. Consider the story of a retail clerk who, after a series of transactions involving gift cards, absent-mindedly cut a customer's actual credit card in half. Or the former preschool teacher who, even in her new corporate job, couldn't shake the habit of asking co-workers if they had washed their hands after using the bathroom. These anecdotes illustrate how deeply ingrained our habits can become, often operating below the level of conscious awareness. The power of habits lies in their ability to automate our behaviors, freeing up mental resources for more complex tasks. However, this same automaticity can lead us astray when our habits are misaligned with our goals or values. The key to leveraging habits for personal growth lies in bringing them into our conscious awareness and intentionally shaping them to serve our desired outcomes. One powerful technique for increasing awareness of our habits is inspired by the Japanese railway system's pointing and calling method. This safety system, which involves operators physically pointing at and verbally calling out various checks and procedures, has been shown to reduce errors by up to 85% and cut accidents by 30%. The effectiveness of this method lies in its ability to elevate routine actions from the non-conscious to the conscious level, engaging multiple senses and increasing overall awareness. We can adapt this concept to our personal lives by creating what we might call a habits scorecard. This simple yet powerful exercise involves listing out our daily habits and evaluating each one as positive, negative, or neutral. By doing so, we bring our automatic behaviors into conscious awareness, allowing us to identify areas for improvement and reinforcement. To create your own habits scorecard, start by listing out your daily routines in detail. Include everything from the moment you wake up to the time you go to bed. Once you have a comprehensive list, go through each item and ask yourself, is this a good habit, a bad habit, or a neutral habit? Mark each habit with a or accordingly. It's important to note that the classification of habits as good or bad is somewhat subjective and depends on your personal goals and circumstances. For instance, eating a high-calorie breakfast might be a positive habit for someone trying to gain weight, but a negative one for someone aiming to lose weight. The key is to evaluate each habit in the context of your own aspirations and desired identity. In fact, it might be more accurate to think of habits not as inherently good or bad, but as either effective or ineffective at solving problems and serving our long-term goals. All habits, even those we might label as bad, serve us in some way. That's why we repeat them. The challenge is to identify which habits are truly serving our long-term interests and which are providing short-term benefits at the expense of our broader goals. When evaluating your habits, consider this question: does this behavior help me become the type of person I wish to be? Does this habit cast a vote for or against my desired identity? Habits that align with and reinforce your desired identity are generally positive, while those that conflict with it are typically negative. As you work through your habit scorecard, resist the urge to judge or criticize yourself. The goal at this stage is simply to observe and become aware of your behaviors, not to change them immediately. Approach the exercise with a sense of curiosity, as if you were an impartial observer of your own life. Notice your patterns without attaching emotion or self-judgment to them. This neutral observation is a crucial first step in the process of habit change. By simply becoming aware of our habits, we often naturally begin to adjust our behaviors. It's like shining a light into a dark room. Suddenly we can see what's actually there, and that awareness alone can be transformative. For those who find they need additional support in maintaining this awareness, the pointing and calling method can be adapted for personal use. For example, if you're trying to reduce snacking, you might say out loud, "I'm about to eat this cookie, but I don't need it. Eating it will move me further from my health goals." This verbalization brings the action fully into your conscious awareness, creating a moment of pause that allows you to make a more intentional choice. As you become more aware of your habits, you may start to notice the cues that trigger them. These cues, the ping of a notification, the sight of the TV remote, the smell of coffee, often become so familiar that they fade into the background of our awareness. By bringing these cues back into focus, we gain the power to interrupt the habit loop and potentially reshape our responses. It's worth noting that the process of habit change is not about achieving perfection or adhering to rigid routines. Rather, it's about making consistent, small choices that align with our desired identity and long-term goals. Every action we take is essentially a vote for the type of person we want to become. We don't need to win every vote, but we need to win the majority to see real change. Moreover, habits don't exist in isolation. They're part of complex systems in our lives, often interconnected in ways we might not immediately recognize. Changing one habit can have ripple effects, influencing other behaviors and aspects of our lives. This interconnectedness can work in our favor sometimes. Changing one keystone habit can lead to a cascade of positive changes across various areas of life. As we work on becoming more aware of our habits and shaping them intentionally, it's crucial to approach the process with patience and self-compassion. Habit formation and change take time. Our brains require repeated experiences to forge new neural pathways and strengthen them to the point of automaticity. This process can't be rushed, but it can be guided with consistent effort and awareness. It's also important to consider the broader implications of habit formation beyond individual behavior. Collective habits form the basis of culture, and societal change often involves shifting the habits of many individuals. By understanding and mastering our own habits, we not only improve our personal lives but potentially contribute to positive changes on a larger scale. The journey of habit awareness and change is not always easy. It requires us to confront uncomfortable truths about our behaviors and to challenge deeply ingrained patterns. However, the rewards of this process are immense. By bringing our habits into conscious awareness and intentionally shaping them to serve our goals, we gain a powerful tool for personal transformation. Imagine the compound effect of replacing just a few ineffective habits with more beneficial ones. Over time, these small changes can lead to dramatic improvements in our health, productivity, relationships, and overall quality of life. The key is to start small, focus on consistency rather than perfection, and maintain awareness of our behaviors over time. As we become more adept at recognizing and shaping our habits, we may find that this awareness extends beyond individual behaviors to larger patterns in our lives. We might start to notice recurring themes in our relationships, our work, or our emotional responses. This expanded awareness can open up new possibilities for growth and change in all areas of our lives. Furthermore, the skills we develop in habit awareness and modification can be applied to achieving any goal or making any change in our lives. Whether we're aiming to advance in our careers, improve our health, or cultivate better relationships, the ability to intentionally shape our habitual behaviors is a powerful tool. In conclusion, the journey of habit awareness and change is a fundamental aspect of personal growth and self-improvement. By bringing our automatic behaviors into conscious awareness, evaluating their effectiveness, and intentionally shaping them to serve our goals, we gain the power to direct our own evolution. This process requires patience, self-compassion, and consistent effort, but the potential rewards are immense. As we navigate this journey, we're not just changing our routines, we're reshaping our identity and our world. Each small action, each habit we modify, is a step towards becoming the person we aspire to be. In this way, the process of habit change is not just about achieving specific goals, but about continually growing and evolving as individuals. The power of habits lies not just in their ability to automate our behaviors, but in their potential to transform who we are and who we can become. By mastering our habits, we take control of our own destiny, creating the freedom to live life on our own terms and to make a positive impact on the world around us. In the complex tapestry of human behavior, habits play a crucial role in shaping our daily lives and long-term outcomes. Understanding how habits form, persist, and can be changed is essential for personal growth and self-improvement. At the heart of this understanding lies the concept of cue-induced wanting, a phenomenon that explains why breaking bad habits can be so challenging. Cue-induced wanting occurs when an external trigger sparks a compulsive craving to repeat a particular behavior, often a bad habit. This process is constantly at work in our lives, frequently operating below the level of conscious awareness. Research has shown that even incredibly brief exposure to cues associated with addictive behaviors can stimulate the brain's reward pathways and ignite desire. For instance, showing cocaine addicts an image of the drug for just 33 milliseconds too fast for conscious recognition is enough to trigger craving. This insight reveals a fundamental truth about habits. While they can be broken, they are rarely, if ever, completely forgotten. Once the neural pathways associated with a habit are established in the brain, they remain etched there, even if they go unused for extended periods. This persistence of habit-related neural structures explains why resisting temptation through sheer willpower is often an ineffective long-term strategy for behavior change. Maintaining constant vigilance against temptation is exhausting and unsustainable in a world filled with distractions and triggers. While it's possible to overpower temptation in the short term through force of will, this approach is likely to fail over time as our mental resources become depleted. Instead, we must recognize that we are, to a large extent, products of our environment. The contexts in which we live, work, and play exert a powerful influence on our behavior, often more so than our conscious intentions. Given this reality, a more effective approach to eliminating bad habits is to focus on reducing exposure to the cues that trigger them. This strategy involves restructuring our environment to make the stimuli associated with undesirable behaviors less prominent or entirely absent. For example, if smartphone use is interfering with productivity, simply placing the device in another room can significantly reduce the temptation to check it constantly. Similarly, unfollowing social media accounts that provoke feelings of jealousy or inadequacy can help break the cycle of comparison and self-doubt. This approach of environmental modification can be applied to a wide range of habits. Removing a television from the bedroom can curtail excessive late-night viewing. Unsubscribing from tech review newsletters might curb impulsive gadget purchases. Unplugging and storing away gaming consoles after each use can help manage time spent on video games. These simple changes can be surprisingly effective in disrupting ingrained behavior patterns. The power of this method lies in its alignment with the fundamental laws of behavior change. Just as making cues obvious can reinforce positive habits, making them invisible can help extinguish negative ones. By eliminating or reducing the visibility of triggers associated with unwanted behaviors, we can often cause the entire habit to fade away over time. This strategy of environmental optimization represents a more sustainable approach to self-control than relying on willpower alone. Rather than constantly fighting against our desires, we can create contexts that naturally support our goals and values. People who appear to have high levels of self-control often achieve this not through superior willpower, but by structuring their lives to minimize exposure to tempting situations. It's important to recognize that self-control, in the traditional sense of resisting temptation through mental effort, is a limited resource. It may be effective for occasional challenges, but it's not a reliable long-term solution for significant behavior change. Instead of repeatedly summoning the willpower to do the right thing, we're better off investing our energy in creating environments that make good choices easier and bad choices harder. This principle extends beyond individual habits to broader aspects of our lives. The people we associate with, the media we consume, the places we frequent, all of these environmental factors shape our behavior in subtle but powerful ways. By consciously designing our surroundings to support our aspirations, we can harness the power of our environment to work for us rather than against us. Understanding the role of cues and environment in habit formation also sheds light on why some people seem to effortlessly maintain positive habits while others struggle. It's not necessarily a matter of inherent discipline or character, but often a reflection of the different contexts in which people live and work. Creating a positive environment is thus not just a personal matter, but also a social and cultural issue. As we consider strategies for cultivating good habits and breaking bad ones, it's helpful to think in terms of 4 fundamental laws: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. These principles can be applied to reinforce positive behaviors or, when inverted, to discourage negative ones. For establishing good habits, the first step is often simply becoming aware of our current patterns of behavior. This can be achieved through practices like maintaining a habit scorecard, where we write down our daily activities and assess their impact on our goals. Once we have this awareness, we can use techniques like implementation intention-specific plans that link a desired behavior to a particular time and place to make good habits more likely to occur. Another powerful tool is habit stacking, where we piggyback a new habit onto an existing one. This leverages the strength of our current routines to establish new behaviors. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 5 minutes. By anchoring the new habit to an established one, we increase the likelihood of follow-through. Making habits attractive is another key principle. This can involve finding ways to associate positive emotions or rewards with the behaviors we want to encourage. Similarly, making habits easy reduces the friction that often prevents us from following through on our intentions. This might involve breaking down larger goals into smaller, more manageable steps or removing obstacles that make good habits more difficult to perform. Finally, making habits satisfying ensures that we feel rewarded for our efforts, increasing the likelihood that we'll repeat the behavior in the future. This can involve creating a sense of progress or achievement, or finding ways to make the process itself more enjoyable. When it comes to breaking bad habits, we can invert these principles. Making cues invisible, as discussed earlier, is a powerful first step. We can also work to make undesirable behaviors less attractive, perhaps by focusing on their negative consequences or finding healthier alternatives that fulfill the same needs. Making bad habits more difficult to perform, for instance, by adding extra steps or inconveniences, can also be effective. And finally, we can strive to make the outcomes of bad habits less satisfying, perhaps by implementing some form of negative consequence or by vividly imagining the long-term effects of the behavior. It's worth noting that the process of habit change is not always linear or straightforward. Our brains are complex systems shaped by evolution to respond to certain stimuli in ways that may no longer serve us well in modern environments. The work of scientists like Nico Tinbergen has revealed how deeply ingrained some of our responses to environmental cues can be. Tinbergen's experiments with herring gulls and greylag geese demonstrated the power of supernormal stimuli, exaggerated versions of natural cues that elicit stronger than normal responses. Baby gulls, for instance, were found to peck more vigorously at cardboard beaks with larger or more numerous red spots than at real gull beaks. Similarly, geese would attempt to roll larger, egg-shaped objects into their nests with greater effort than they would expend on actual eggs. These findings have profound implications for understanding human behavior in modern contexts. Just as the animals in Tinbergen's experiments responded more strongly to exaggerated versions of natural stimuli, humans often find themselves powerfully drawn to supernormal stimuli environment. Junk food, with its heightened flavors and carefully engineered combinations of salt, sugar, and fat, is a prime example of this phenomenon. Our brains, shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of evolution in environments where calories were scarce and hard to come by, are primed to seek out and consume energy-dense foods whenever they're available. In our ancestral past, this drive served us well, helping to ensure survival in uncertain conditions. Today, however, in an environment of abundance, these same instincts can lead us astray, driving overconsumption and contributing to health problems. This mismatch between our evolutionary programming and our current environment extends beyond food to many other aspects of modern life. The instant gratification offered by social media, the immersive experiences provided by video games, the constant stream of novel information available at our fingertips, all of these can be seen as supernormal stimuli that hijack our reward systems in ways our ancestors never had to contend with. Understanding these dynamics can help us approach habit change with greater compassion for ourselves and others. It's not a matter of weak will or moral failing when we struggle with bad habits. We're often fighting against deeply ingrained instincts that served our species well for millennia but may be maladaptive in our current context. At the same time, this understanding empowers us to take more effective action. By recognizing the power of environmental cues and the limitations of willpower, we can focus our efforts on creating contexts that support our goals rather than undermine them. We can design our physical and digital spaces to minimize exposure to tempting stimuli and maximize exposure to cues that trigger positive behaviors. Moreover, we can work to create new, healthier supernormal stimuli that satisfy our innate drives in more beneficial ways. For instance, we might seek out activities that provide the novelty and excitement our brains crave, but in forms that contribute to our well-being rather than detract from it. Engaging hobbies, challenging physical activities, or immersive learning experiences can all provide the kind of stimulation our brains seek, without the negative consequences associated with many modern sources of supernormal stimuli. In conclusion, the journey of habit change is a complex but fascinating one, deeply rooted in our evolutionary history and profoundly influenced by our modern environment. By understanding the mechanisms behind habit formation and persistence, we can develop more effective strategies for personal growth and self-improvement. The key lies not in heroic feats of willpower, but in thoughtful design of our environments and routines to align with our goals and values. Through this approach, we can harness the power of our habits to create lasting positive change in our lives. The intricate relationship between human behavior, habit formation, and the food industry reveals fascinating insights into the nature of desire and consumption in our modern world. At the heart of this relationship lies the powerful influence of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that plays a crucial role in motivation, reward, and habit formation. The food science industry has harnessed our biological predispositions to create products that are irresistibly attractive to consumers. By manipulating factors such as texture, flavor, and sensory experience, food scientists have developed techniques to make processed foods exceptionally appealing. The concept of dynamic contrast. In food, the combination of different sensations like crunchiness and creaminess keeps our brains engaged and interested, encouraging continued consumption beyond the point of satiety. This optimization of food products extends to finding the perfect bliss point, a precise balance of salt, sugar, and fat that maximizes palatability and appeal. The result is a category of hyper-palatable foods that effectively hijack our reward systems, leading to overconsumption and potentially contributing to issues like obesity and related health problems. The power of these engineered foods lies in their ability to trigger dopamine release in our brains. Dopamine, once thought to be primarily associated with pleasure, is now understood to play a complex role in motivation, learning, and anticipation of rewards. Crucially, dopamine is released not just when we experience pleasure, but also when we anticipate it. This anticipatory aspect of dopamine release is key to understanding why certain habits, including those related to food consumption, can become so deeply ingrained and difficult to break. The dopamine-driven feedback loop that underlies habit formation extends far beyond food. In our modern society, we are surrounded by highly engineered versions of reality that are more attractive and stimulating than anything our ancestors encountered. From carefully crafted advertisements to the instant gratification of social media likes, these supernormal stimuli exploit our natural inclinations and drive us towards excessive behaviors in shopping, social media use, and various forms of entertainment. The trend towards more concentrated rewards and more enticing stimuli is likely to continue, presenting ever greater challenges to our ability to regulate our behavior and make healthy choices. Junk food, hard liquor, and video games are all examples of how natural rewards have been concentrated and amplified in ways that make them particularly hard to resist. Understanding the role of dopamine in craving and habit formation provides valuable insights for those seeking to change their behavior or break undesirable habits. The key realization is that it's the anticipation of reward, not necessarily the reward itself, that drives much of our behavior. This explains why the excitement of planning a vacation can sometimes exceed the enjoyment of the trip itself, or why the anticipation of a special event can be more thrilling than the event itself. This knowledge can be leveraged to make positive habits more attractive and thus more likely to stick. By finding ways to increase the anticipation of rewards associated with beneficial behaviors, we can harness the power of our dopamine system to work in our favor. Similarly, understanding the role of environmental cues in triggering cravings can help us design our surroundings to support our goals rather than undermine them. The challenge we face is significant. Our brains, evolved in an environment of scarcity, are now confronted with abundance and hyperstimulation at every turn. The very mechanisms that once ensured our survival, like the drive to consume calorie-dense foods, can now lead us astray in a world of plenty. However, by understanding these mechanisms, we gain the power to make informed choices and design strategies to align our behavior with our long-term goals and values. As we navigate this landscape of engineered experiences and supernormal stimuli, it's crucial to maintain awareness of how our environments and choices are shaping our habits. By consciously designing our surroundings and routines to support positive behaviors, we can work with our dopamine systems rather than against them. This might involve creating rewarding rituals around healthy activities, finding ways to make beneficial habits more immediately gratifying, or structuring our environments to minimize exposure to tempting cues. Moreover, this understanding calls for a broader societal conversation about the ethics of designing products and experiences that exploit our psychological vulnerabilities. As our ability to create irresistible stimuli grows, so too does our responsibility to consider the long-term impacts on individual and public health. In conclusion, the interplay between our ancient reward systems and our modern, engineered environment presents both challenges and opportunities. By deepening our understanding of the dopamine-driven processes underlying habit formation and craving, we equip ourselves with powerful tools for personal growth and societal progress. The key lies in harnessing these insights to create environments and habits that support our well-being, while remaining mindful of the potent forces shaping our desires and behaviors in the modern world. In our modern world, we find ourselves surrounded by an array of products and experiences meticulously designed to captivate our attention and spark our desires. At the forefront of this phenomenon is the food industry, where science and consumer psychology intersect to create irresistible edibles that keep us coming back for more. But this is just the tip of the iceberg in a society increasingly shaped by supernormal stimuli and engineered experiences that exploit our deepest biological drives. The food science industry has elevated the creation of appealing products to an art form, investing millions in research to perfect every aspect of the eating experience. From the satisfying crunch of a potato chip to the fizz of a soda, no detail is too small to escape scrutiny. The concept of aura sensation, how a food feels in your mouth, has become a key focus, with entire departments dedicated to optimizing this sensory experience. Consider the humble French fry, a seemingly simple food that embodies this approach. Its appeal lies in the contrast between its crispy exterior and soft interior, a combination that lights up our pleasure centers with each bite. This principle of dynamic contrast is a powerful tool in the food scientist's arsenal, creating products that offer a variety of sensations in a single item. The gooey cheese atop a crisp pizza crust, or the interplay between a crunchy cookie and its creamy filling, are prime examples of this strategy in action. These techniques serve a singular purpose to keep us engaged and eating long past the point where we might normally feel satisfied. Natural, unprocessed foods tend to become less appealing as we consume them, a phenomenon known as sensory-specific satiety. Your brain gradually loses interest in the repetitive sensations, signaling that it's time to stop eating. However, foods high in dynamic contrast circumvent this natural mechanism, maintaining novelty and interest bite after bite. The ultimate goal of this scientific approach to food design is to find the bliss point, that perfect balance of salt, sugar, and fat that makes a product irresistible to the human palate. This combination triggers a powerful response in our brains, overriding natural satiety signals and encouraging overconsumption. The result is a category of hyperpalatable foods that are incredibly attractive to our reward systems, often leading to overeating and associated health issues. But the implications of this approach extend far beyond the realm of nutrition. The principle at work here, making something more attractive to increase the likelihood of repeated engagement, is a fundamental aspect of habit formation. In essence, the food industry has become adept at creating habit-forming products by exploiting our natural tendencies and biological drives. This phenomenon is not limited to food. Our modern society is replete with examples of engineered experiences designed to be more appealing than anything our ancestors encountered. Retail stores use mannequins with exaggerated features to sell clothing, tapping into our instinctive responses to certain body shapes. Social media platforms have perfected the art of delivering rapid-fire positive reinforcement, providing more likes and praise in a few minutes than we might receive in days of real-world interaction. The world of online entertainment offers perhaps the most striking examples of this trend. Pornography sites present a constant stream of novel, highly stimulating content at a pace impossible to replicate in real life. Video games offer immersive experiences that can be more engaging than many real-world activities. Even advertisements have become highly sophisticated, using ideal lighting, professional makeup, and digital editing to create images that are more attractive than reality. These are all examples of supernormal stimuli, artificial constructs that exaggerate the features we're naturally attracted to, eliciting a stronger response than we would have to natural stimuli. Our instincts, honed over millennia of evolution, are ill-equipped to handle these intensified versions of reality. As a result, we often find ourselves drawn into excessive behaviors, whether it's overeating, compulsive shopping, social media addiction, or other habits that can be detrimental to our well-being. The trend towards more concentrated rewards and more enticing stimuli shows no signs of slowing down. If anything, history suggests that future opportunities for gratification will be even more attractive than those available today. We can see this pattern in the evolution of various products and experiences. Junk food offers a more concentrated form of calories than natural foods. Hard liquor provides a more potent dose of alcohol than beer. Video games present a more immersive and stimulating form of play than traditional board games. This intensification of experience poses a significant challenge to our ability to regulate our behavior and make healthy choices. We find ourselves equipped with brains that evolved in an environment of scarcity, now faced with abundance and hyperstimulation at every turn. The very mechanisms that once ensured our survival, like the drive to consume calorie-dense foods when available, can now lead us astray in a world of plenty. To understand why these engineered experiences are so powerful, we need to delve into the neuroscience of habit formation and craving. At the heart of this process is dopamine, a neurotransmitter that plays a crucial role in motivation, reward, and learning. For many years, scientists believed that dopamine was primarily associated with pleasure. However, more recent research has revealed that its role is far more complex and central to a wide range of neurological processes. Dopamine is involved not just in experiencing pleasure, but in motivation, learning and memory, punishment and aversion, and even voluntary movement. The key insight when it comes to habit formation is that dopamine is released not only when we experience a reward, but also when we anticipate one. This anticipatory aspect of dopamine release is crucial to understanding why certain behaviors become habitual and why breaking bad habits can be so challenging. Experiments with animals have provided striking demonstrations of dopamine's power. When researchers blocked dopamine release in rats, the animals lost all motivation, refusing to eat, drink, or engage in any goal-directed behavior. They quite literally lost the will to live. Conversely, when scientists flooded the reward centers of animal brains with dopamine, the subjects engaged in repetitive behaviors at an astonishing rate, such as mice poking their noses into a box hundreds of times per hour in pursuit of a dopamine hit. Human behavior shows similar patterns, albeit in more complex forms. Gambling addicts experience a surge of dopamine just before placing a bet, not after winning. Cocaine users get a dopamine spike at the sight of the drug, before actually consuming it. This anticipatory release of dopamine is what drives us to action, creating the motivation to pursue rewards. This understanding of dopamine's role helps explain why the anticipation of an experience can often be more enjoyable than the experience itself. The excitement of planning a vacation or looking forward to a special event can surpass the actual pleasure of the moment when it arrives. Scientists describe this as the difference between wanting and liking two related but distinct processes in the brain. The implications of this dopamine-driven feedback loop are profound for our understanding of habit formation and behavior change. Every highly habit-forming behavior, from drug use to social media browsing, is associated with elevated levels of dopamine. Even our most basic habitual behaviors, like eating, drinking, and social interaction, operate on this same principle. Recognizing the power of anticipation in driving behavior provides valuable insights for those seeking to change their habits or cultivate new ones. Rather than relying solely on willpower to resist temptation, we can focus on manipulating our environment and routines to make desirable behaviors more attractive and undesirable ones less so. For instance, if we want to establish a habit of regular exercise, we might focus on creating positive anticipation around the activity. This could involve planning enjoyable routes for runs, choosing workout music that excites us, or rewarding ourselves with a pleasant post-workout ritual. By associating the anticipation of exercise with positive feelings, we can harness our dopamine system to reinforce the habit. Conversely, to break a bad habit, we might focus on reducing the anticipatory pleasure associated with it. This could involve removing cues from our environment that trigger cravings, or consciously focusing on the negative consequences of the behavior rather than its short-term rewards. However, it's important to recognize that we're not just passive recipients of our environment's influences. We have the power to consciously design our surroundings and routines in ways that support our goals. This might involve creating physical spaces that encourage productive behaviors, carefully curating our digital environments to minimize exposure to addictive content, or structuring our daily schedules to prioritize activities that align with our long-term aspirations. Moreover, understanding the role of dopamine and anticipation in driving behavior can help us develop more compassion for ourselves and others when it comes to struggling with bad habits or addictions. Rather than viewing these challenges as simple matters of willpower or moral failing, we can recognize them as the result of powerful neurological processes shaped by both our biology and our environment. This perspective also raises important questions about the ethics of designing products and experiences that exploit these psychological vulnerabilities. As our ability to create irresistible stimuli grows, so too does our responsibility to consider the long-term impacts on individual and public health. There's a need for broader societal conversations about how we can balance innovation and consumer appeal with ethical considerations and public well-being. In conclusion, the intricate dance between our ancient reward systems and our modern, engineered environment presents both challenges and opportunities. By deepening our understanding of the dopamine-driven processes underlying habit formation and craving, we equip ourselves with powerful tools for personal growth and societal progress. The key lies in harnessing these insights to create environments and habits that support our well-being, while remaining mindful of the potent forces shaping our desires and behaviors in the modern world. As we navigate this landscape of supernormal stimuli and carefully crafted experiences, maintaining awareness of how our choices and surroundings influence our habits becomes crucial. By consciously designing our environments and routines to support positive behaviors, we can work with our dopamine systems rather than against them. This might involve creating rewarding rituals around healthy activities, finding ways to make beneficial habits more immediately gratifying, or structuring our surroundings to minimize exposure to tempting cues. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate all sources of pleasure or to live in denial of our natural drives. Rather, it's to create a balance where we can enjoy the fruits of human ingenuity and progress while maintaining control over our behaviors and staying true to our deeper values and aspirations. By understanding the science behind habit formation and applying these insights thoughtfully, we can cultivate lives rich in meaningful experiences and sustainable pleasures, rather than being driven by the fleeting highs of engineered stimuli. In doing so, we reclaim our agency in a world increasingly designed to push our buttons